Husky Game Prep is brought to you by Gate City Bank, proud supporter of your Huskies. Stop by and ask us about our low interest rates to finally buy that new snowmobile or ice house you've been waiting for. Contact any of our 43 locations across North Dakota and central Minnesota, and of course around the St. Cloud area. Gate City Bank, for a better way of life. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Hello and welcome back into episode number 2 of Husky Game Prep. Sam Getzinger here with you, and joining me is our first guest of the show, head coach of the men's hockey team, Brett Larson. Coach, thanks for taking some time today. Very big weekend. You wrap up week 1 in the NCHC pod down in Omaha, Nebraska, 3-0. Let's start with a state of the union of the program, if you will. What are some of your overall thoughts of the weekend?
Well, it's funny as a coach, you're certainly excited to start that way, but you also realize how much work you have to do. Every team in this league is going to get better every game, and for us, we certainly can't be satisfied. We got a couple breaks early here and there, and did some good things too. But obviously, our focus is to keep trying to get better because every game is going to get tougher and tougher.
And taking a look at your lines for this past first 3 games, it's been fairly consistent. A couple of changes here and there. Of course, Jackson Castor got the start on Sunday. Chase Brand and Thomas Rocco had a couple of switching out as well. What are your takeaway on the lines? Do you think they're pretty well set? Any more changes we'll see moving forward?
Yeah, we'll make our kind of philosophy coming in here is we're going to need everybody, and that means that. Guys are going to have to be in and out just a little bit to save our energy, save our legs, get fresh legs in when we need them. And, we're looking at now a Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday series here again. That's going to be a real grind, and it's not going to be easy. So expect to see a couple guys in and out pretty much each night as we filter through the lineup. And, we just expect that guys are going to be able to step in and fill the roles and keep playing. So it's part of the plan for sure. We got to sit some good players. It's hard for them to sit out, but at the end of the day, we think it's going to be best for the team.
And one of those was David Rennick, and of course, coming in for him on that Omaha game was Jackson Castor. Speak a little bit about his play on Sunday. A little bit of a tough start. Of course, that's what you'll see in the first game of the year, and then he really settled in towards the end of that game.
Yeah, he hadn't played hockey in well over a year, like most people, and well, not over a year, but pretty close. And so for him, I think getting in and get settled, it was a strange shot. The first one that went in kind of went through some feet and a little bit of surprise shot, hit the post and went in. And I guess what I was most excited about was his response to that. It didn't get him off his game. He reset. He played well for us. He had a really strong early part of the second period where they got some good chances and could have broken the game open. Without the saves that he made there, we probably don't win that game. So I thought he stepped up, did a great job. And I think for all these goalies, competition's a great thing. They know if they get in, they got to be on top of their game. And they know that there's a 3-way push for that spot.
And, of course, Sunday saw a lot of firsts for a lot of the teams. Zemer gets his first goal. Mittinen does a fantastic job. And, of course, that line of Mittinen, Brodzinski, and Yami Kranola, they've created a lot of buzz after week 1. Speak about their play a little bit and what's worked so well for them.
Well, they're tenacious. They're all over the puck. A lot of people might think it's just skill, and that's certainly a big part of it. But those guys get to pucks. They win puck battles when they're playing well. They keep moving. They play off each other. They're starting to build some chemistry. So, you know what? Now they're going to have to fight through more adversity, though, because teams will start watching for them. They'll try to get certain defenders out against them, and they're going to try to counter that a little bit. But I am excited about the direction that line's heading, and they seem to have some chemistry.
And now you're in the national polls for the first time this season, coming in at 13. What do you think about that? You happy with where you're at? And, of course, I'm sure you want to keep growing and move up even more.
The only, in all honesty, of course you want to finish as high as you can in your league standings. The national polls are nice, but at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is our game against Western Michigan tomorrow. And, looking at polls is something really you're hoping the players aren't doing too much and or we're not paying much attention to either.
Most definitely. And you touched on it. Western Michigan coming up on Wednesday. That is a 3:35 puck drop for that. Of course, Western Michigan struggling a little bit so far in the NCHC pod, coming up winless. They just lost most recently to Colorado College in a shootout. And, of course, CC just coming into the pod. What are some things you've been working for on your Monday off day and, of course, on Tuesday to get ready for that game against Western Michigan?
Well, I think the first thing our players need to remember, and so do we, is that that was a 3-3 game with Western. We got a little bit of luck there at the end. Otherwise, that thing's going into overtime. And they're a good hockey team. They've had a couple tough breaks, obviously, with their goalie going down early. But we're going to be playing a heck of a team that's well coached. They're going to be prepared, and they're going to be hungry to win. So I think the biggest thing for us is making sure that mentally we're prepared, we're ready for that. It's going to be another battle, just like it is every game in this league. So we're excited for it. It's a big test for us. We know they're going to be hungry, so we have to be hungrier.
Coach, best of luck to you moving forward throughout the NCHC pod. Always a pleasure to chat with you. Best of luck against Western Michigan. We'll be back with more on Husky Game Prep coming up next.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Huskies fans, reminder that Huskies Game Prep is brought to you by Gate City Bank, proud supporter of SCSU Athletics. Gate City Bank, for a better way of life. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Hello and welcome back into Husky Game Prep. Sam Getzinger here with you, and alongside of me from the rink live, Mick Hatton. Mick, how you doing today?
Doing well. How are you, Sam?
You know, I'm doing great. I'm doing much better today, especially now that the Huskies are 3-0 after a big weekend series. They went up against number 4 Denver in game 1 on Saturday. Big 4-3 win over there. Took on Omaha the day after, and Omaha has been very impressive. We'll touch on that in a little bit. And then they were able to knock them off 5-3. What are some thoughts you have over the weekend about the Huskies? They look rather impressive.
They did, and they certainly, tried to shoot themselves in the foot against Denver. I mean, I think officially there was some mix up, with the statistics there for a while. I think officially they had to try and kill 8 penalties, against Denver. When you're playing one of the top teams in the country, that is typically a recipe for a big loss. They were able to kill 6 out of them. And we're able to, find a way to kind of scratch and claw and find their way to a 4-3 win over Denver. It's a very good Denver team. I know they're sitting there at 0-3, but really that's a top 10 team when you look at Denver. They haven't caught a few bounces. St. Cloud State maybe was a little bit fortunate that Denver had played the night before. St. Cloud State had a couple of days off in between. So Denver didn't get off to the start that they were looking for, but boy, they were there in the third period. And David Rennick had a huge part of the win in the third period. I thought he played great down the stretch in that game. And, and then, last night against Omaha, they did not play a great first period. They were out of sync. I mean, they did not pass the puck particularly well. I didn't think early in that game. And Nebraska Omaha is a quick team and a team that is much improved. I think they're going to be, one of the top. They're going to be battling St. Cloud State for one of those top home playoff spots. So that means top 4 in the conference. And I've been impressed by Omaha here in the early going.
Yeah, most definitely. And of course, no slouch to Denver, 4th ranked team in the country. And they kind of had a hard part of their schedule to start off the season. They're going up against the top 3 teams in the NCHC almost. And of course, going 0-3. So we might see them drop in the polls a little bit. But looking at the stats from this weekend series, of course, what we have on our website, 9 penalties against Denver. And of course, there may be some confusion there, but still a good amount of penalties. And then 5 last night against Omaha. Luckily, the PK was pretty good, but the power play on the flip side, that could use a little bit of work, would you say?
Yeah, last night they had a 5-minute major power play, and they did virtually nothing with it. Their puck movement was not very good. There was not a big sense of urgency, I didn't think, in that 5-minute major. Their zone entries were not very good. They had a hard time getting into the zone. They had a hard time staying in the zone. They had a hard time moving the puck when they finally did get in the zone. That was a little bit surprising because, you think with all the skill, of the skilled people that play on the power play, that's been a real strength for St. Cloud State over the years. And it was out of sync this past weekend. And that's an area I get, if we're looking at, for areas to shore up, some things on special teams. One, stop, going to the penalty box quite so much. And 2, get the power play moving a little bit better and, get after it a little bit better there.
And of course, in between the pipes, David Rennick started the first two games. Pretty impressive so far, knocking off 17th ranked team in the country, Western Michigan, 4th ranked team in the country in Denver. And then last night, Jackson Castor comes in, and it makes sense to give David Rennick a little bit of a break with how many games they're playing in this pod.
Yeah, I guess I was a little bit surprised that they changed it up last night versus maybe on Wednesday. Western Michigan is struggling right now. Their goalie Brandon Bussey went down, and they have not looked like the same team since he got hurt in that first game against St. Cloud State. And so I would have anticipated that they were going to replace Rennick with, either Castor or Joey Lamoureux in that Wednesday game, but they chose to do it on Sunday. My days are all getting mixed. On Sunday against Nebraska Omaha, and Castor had a little bit of a slow start, but he was big in the third period and helped seal that win.
He did. He looked more confident as the game went on. That's very good to see out of the first start from Jackson Castor. Now, Mick, you're in the pod. You've seen pretty much all NCHC games so far at this point over at Baxter Arena. What are some of your overall thoughts of the conference in a whole? What are some surprises or some individuals that have really stood out to you?
Well, I think one of the surprises is Denver being 0-3. Yes, they were playing Minnesota and Duluth and North Dakota. And then St. Cloud State. All three are good teams, but to see Denver not come away with a win in any of those games and lose 1-goal games each night, that's been a little bit of a surprise to me. North Dakota has not been a surprise. I mean, everybody kind of knew that they were going to. That they're loaded and have a lot back and have a great freshman class. So their strong start has not surprised me at all. Miami and Western Michigan have probably gotten off to the slowest starts. Miami looked a little bit better yesterday against Minnesota Duluth. They're a young team. Their goaltending has been really good. Miami's gotten good goaltending from two different goalies. And that's been a big thing for them. When I'm trying, Minnesota Duluth has been a little, there's another, I guess, a little bit surprised, not surprised that necessarily that they're 3-0, but I'm a little bit surprised that at the way Minnesota Duluth has played. They've been a little bit uneven. They're replacing a ton on the backside, and you can see that on occasion. They're not breaking the puck out maybe as well at different points, and some of their defensive coverage stuff has not been as good, but they've gotten strong goaltending and they've looked very good at different points, and they've certainly closed teams out in the third period.
Yeah, definitely. Now, before I let you go, we have to talk about the game coming up on Wednesday against Western Michigan, and you alluded to it a little bit earlier. Western Michigan, ever since losing their number one goaltender, hasn't looked like the same team since the first game when they were playing against St. Cloud State. Gave up a 10 spot to Omaha and an 8 spot to the University of North Dakota. What are some things you'll be looking for? What do you think some things the Huskies need to work on going into the game on Wednesday?
Well, I mean, when a team is struggling like they are, the big thing is to push the pace on them and get ahead of them early. Just take away, any things that they may be working on and start getting into their mentality a little bit of this isn't going to happen for you again today. And you could see that against North Dakota. After they gave up the third goal and they got down 3-0 in that game. Some of their will to compete, kind of waned for a good stretch of that game. And so that'll be a big thing for St. Cloud State. They need to keep that foot on the floor, playing against Western Michigan and not take anything for granted, going, get a lead and make sure that they stay on top of that, get the power play, back, running the way they like it to run. And don't get into this is going to be a really ticked off Western Michigan team. They were a very good team last season. They had a lot of turnover. I think they have 11 freshmen on their roster, and they need to, just keep pushing against them and make those young guys, think that this isn't happening for them here in the early going.
Yeah, most definitely. Huskies looking to move to 4-0 against Western Michigan. That game coming up on Wednesday. Mick, thank you so much for joining us here on Husky Game Prep. Be sure to check out the Rink Live for all your college hockey news, and Mick, you stay safe.
Hey, thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate it.
Huskies fans, reminder that Huskies Game Prep is brought to you by Gate City Bank, proud supporter of SCSU Athletics. Gate City Bank, for a better way of life. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Hello and welcome back into Husky Game Prep, Episode 2, brought to you by Gate City Bank. Sam Getzinger here with you, alongside of me, the voice of NCHC Hockey on CBS and one of the voices on Midco Sports Network. It's Ben Holden. Ben, thank you for taking some time today.
Anytime, Sam. It's an honor to be with you guys, and I got a fresh coffee, and it's an off day here in Omaha, so why not keep talking hockey? That's pretty much all it is. So it's cool to do this with you guys. Anything you want and need throughout this, I'm happy to help.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm glad you got your coffee and you're ready to roll. Of course, hockey's been one of the big things during this pandemic. We're very happy to have that back in the NCHC. Now, I want to talk on a day in the life in the pod for you as a broadcaster, not a player. We've talked to Kyler Kupka and kind of got his day in the life. They go out to movies sometime, grab some food. What's a day in the life in the pod for Ben Holden?
It's not really exciting. I mean, for most, it's exciting for me because I really wanted to be a part of this. And, I've worked with CBS for a long time, and, I really miss being around the game. I spent a couple of years in the American Hockey League and felt like I was on a trajectory to get to the National Hockey League. And, things changed in my life. My son was 9. I got divorced and I needed to be with him. And, for the last 10 years, I've been there full time. And, I haven't done a lot of hockey except, our package. And this opportunity was something I didn't want to miss. I love the league. I love the players. I love the coaches. I love the people. I love the fans. And it's just an awesome opportunity. But as far as the daily routine, I mean, it's basically been get up, hockey, call games, work out, eat, hydrate, try to rest, talk to my girlfriend, talk to my son. We're in the same hotel as North Dakota, so we see those guys quite a bit, and chat with them a little bit and all those things. So it's just hockey, man. It's 24/7. So it's perfect for me, man. I'm thrilled to be here, and it's awesome.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a bad schedule at all. Just hockey, hockey the whole way down there in Omaha. And of course, you're calling a good majority of the games over at Baxter Arena. And I know in your career, you're not really used to calling games with no fans in the crowds. What's that dynamic been like?
It's interesting, Sam. I did 10 football games with CBS before I came in here, and 6 of the games I did were at West Point. I've done Army's games for 9 years and got a deep affection for that place too. And they had cadets, so that was a little different. And I'm a guy that feeds off of energy when I call a game, and I wondered what that would be like, to be honest with you. And then, I did 4 other games where there were no fans. And personally, it doesn't really affect me. I still have the crowd effects in my headset, so I can feel whether it's the field, the court, the diamond, whatever, the rink, the ice. And that's something I've always done, because I feel like in the opportunity I'm in and the role that I'm in, that I want to get the fan as close as I can get them. And that really helps me. I feed off of that. Like in the game last night with your guys, I mean, just energy, electricity, and, every game they played's been that way. So that part's been easy. And, the one thing that is kind of cool is that we're all hearing things in sports, whether it's hockey, football, basketball, whatever the sport is, it's been played, soccer, lacrosse, whatever. You hear a lot of things that you don't normally hear, some good, some bad, of course. And it's our job as broadcasters to, clean that up, as we would say, if some vulgarities go across the air. But I like that part of it. That's kind of unique, to be able to hear what's going on. Like last night in the Huskies game with Omaha, there were 2 or 3 times where both benches were going bananas, and Brett wanted to call, Mike Gabinet wanted to call, players are, hey, what's going on? They're throwing their hands up in the air, and, they thought there were penalties. So I think that part of it's cool, but I'll be honest with you, Sam, once the game's going, man, I'm locked in. And, again, I have that crowd and the ice and the sticks and the pucks and all that in my ear. So I'm just feeding off that. So it's different, but that's something I like about it. And for me, it's just focus on the game and call the screws off it. And, I don't really, it's different, but I can't control it. So I just control what I can control, for lack of sounding like a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Coach Larson alluded to that in episode one. Just control the controllables. And once you're out there with no fans, it's business as usual once the game gets going. And of course, that's the same with broadcasting. And it seems like you and your partner, Dave Starman, haven't missed a beat since moving the transition over to Midcoast. So we're very happy to have you guys in the booth over there in the pod. Now, of course, your main duty is to cover NCHC, not just St. Cloud State, but the whole conference. So I want to hear some of your thoughts on the conference as a whole. Who are some teams that have surprised you so far, some big storylines, or some individuals as well?
It's a great question. I mean, I guess I would start, probably the biggest story I think is certainly Western Michigan. And that would fall in the negative category for them. A period in 8 minutes or whatever it was, and they lose Brandon Bussey, a guy that really toted the mail for them last year. And, that's tough, man. That's just really difficult for them to deal with. And two guys, I mean, the freshman they have in Aslanitis, I believe is his name. They've changed it 3 times.
Yep.
For the 6'5" freshman kid. He's 19. He only played a year of junior hockey. I mean, so he doesn't have a lot of experience. Austin Kane hadn't played a game in 2 years. So that's tough, man. That's a huge story for them. They've got 3 freshmen D on their back end. And then on top of that, they lose Jared Kucharik, who was a pretty important piece of their D-core last year. Every team loses players. I'm not making excuses for them, but, they lost 5-6 guys up front that, you got to have guys step up. And that's really the bottom line. So I would say on the negative side, that would be the biggest surprise. On the positive side, I think you can put St. Cloud State in that group. I still think even though St. Cloud State beat them on Sunday night, Omaha, they're similar situation with them in game 1 for Western Michigan against St. Cloud State. I mean, they're a player or 2 away from winning that game against Minnesota Duluth. And those of us that follow the league and follow college hockey, that's what Minnesota Duluth does, man. They find ways to win games. And, then Omaha scores 10, and then they pull out an OT thriller against Miami. And then last night, St. Cloud gets them in a hell of a hockey game. And that would be a surprise to me. I think St. Cloud, the fact that they're where they are, and I don't mean that with any disrespect. I just mean the way they played. And Dave and I have talked about this in the last 2 games, Sam, and your program has always been built on speed. I mean, going back to Herb, going to Bob, and, now with Brett. But this team, Dave compared it to some of the BC teams, the Boston College teams. I mean, and those teams can flat out wheel. And your guys seem like they're on another level, man. They are flying. I mean, they're playing that first game when they played Western. I felt like it was game 7 of a playoff series. I mean, the pace of that thing, the tempo, the way they started, that's surprising to me. We'll see how they hold up in week 2. And, I don't really think I wouldn't say there are any other surprises. Those would be the big ones to me. Denver, yeah, they're 0-3, but they're a couple plays away from being 3-0.
Right.
They've lost 3 games by a goal, and they just haven't been able to close out. So those are the biggest ones for me, Sam.
And let's touch on St. Cloud State a little more. And of course, speed has been a big dynamic coming into this season. You and Dave have touched on it a lot about or during the games, I should say. What are some other things that really stand out for the Huskies and have gotten them to this big 3-0 start? The
Finn line. Yeah. I mean, those guys are awesome, man. They are. I mean, Cronell was a good player last year, but to me, and I only did 8 games last year, before everything shut down, but he's elevated his game. I mean, I can see it. He's playing with a little bit more bite, I would say. The skill's there. That's been there. He's one of those Finnish guys, and they know how to play, and they're smart. They're instinctive. Their IQ's really good. They're patient. They find ways to get into open ice. And Mittinen, that kid, wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm really impressed with him. His hands are $1 million hands. I mean, and him, those two in Brodzinski last night, I mean, they go out in back-to-back shifts and they tie the game and then put them up. And, those guys have been really impressive. I think Sam Henches has played really, really well. I know that he hadn't scored, and it was, a year ago today, and he got one a couple nights ago. And, that was bound to happen. Sam's a heck of a player, and he's played at a really high pace. I've noticed Kevin Fitzgerald as well. Good player, but I think he's, one of those guys that's elevated his game. And I'll steal a phrase from the coach they beat last night and the team they beat, Mike Gabinet, and he talked with Dave and I yesterday. And that's something that's cool. Every single day we have games, we're calling the coaches, so we get on the phone with them for 10 or 15 minutes. So we're fresh and we got a great pulse of their team. And Mike said to us yesterday, he said, when guys get to be juniors, they need to be guys that obviously your seniors are guys you're expecting, and whatever their role is on the team, if they're a top 6 guy or a third D pair or a third or fourth line guy, those guys they should be leading your team. But the juniors, to give you that depth and to make your lineup tougher to play against, the junior class for St. Cloud, I think is really done that. And, those guys have been great. All those guys I mentioned, I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, but really, and I said this last night during the game, really, you can look at both Omaha and St. Cloud State. There isn't a guy on their roster that was in their lineup last night that really hasn't played well. I mean, both teams, specifically your guys, have played, I think, incredibly well from top to bottom. There's another guy I'll mention too, and he had a hell of a goal last night. That's Cockrell. He's my kind of guy. I'm a third and fourth line plumber. I love the bottom 6 guys. The top 6 guys are always going to get theirs, and if they don't, they're going to break out eventually. But those bottom 6 guys are important. And I like that Cockrell. That goal he scored was amazing. It kind of epitomizes what he's about. And Brett's talked with Dave and I every time we've talked about, we needed a guy that could fill the role of Jack and Nick. And man, he's done it. He doesn't have the size, but he plays big. And that was a gritty goal and a huge goal to give you guys some insurance last night.
St. Cloud State 3-0 to start off NCHC play, tied for the top of the conference with Duluth. And they haven't had a start to the season like this in conference play since Brett Larson's first year. And I know you had a good relation with a lot of the players on that team, yeah. Robbie Jackson, Jimmy Schultz, Patrick Newell, the list goes on. How could you compare this team with that team back when they were the #1 team in the country?
Those guys had some success, I would say that. And this group is trying to find that success. We had you guys a couple times late last year. My last game, in fact, before the shutdown was against Denver when you guys won. I think it was 5-1.
Yep.
28th, and I came home the 29th. I was hurt. I didn't work the next week, and everything shut down. So point is, I believe it was 7-5-2 down the stretch for you guys, something like that. So that team was coming into form, but to go back, you mentioned those guys, Jackson and Newell and Schultz and Sean and the Palings and all those guys, and I'm leaving guys out and I apologize, but those guys had success, the previous year. They had really good teams. And so this team, to me, I would say the biggest difference to me is the overall speed and the pace they're playing at. And, and those teams did too. Don't get me wrong. They played at pace, but that was Brett's first year. That team the year before had a hell of a season. This group's trying to, we've heard the phrase a lot here in the pod, Sam, with every single coach, finding your identity. And it's clear that St. Cloud's identity it's kind of like, I would compare it to use a football analogy. It's kind of like, a defensive coordinator, he's going to bring the heat. He's going to blitz. And that's the way Brett's team is playing. And they're going to be relentless. And the old phrase, they want to be hard to play against, and I look at that shift. I believe it was Easton's goal where they just, I said once or twice on the call, I said, they're just down below the dots and they're just wearing them down. And even when you have the speed, you don't always have to be, full bore. Like, let's say go back to game 1 on that play with Fitzgerald when Perbix hit him on that stretch pass where he's just gas pedal to the floor. You can do that inside the zone by just wearing teams down and using your speed and using your spacing and your gaps and all those things. So, those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and of course, Huskies 3-0 to start off NCHC play in the pod in Omaha. Big wins against Western Michigan, Denver, and Omaha. They take on Western Michigan again coming up on Wednesday. Ben, when's the next time you're on a call in Baxter Arena?
Tomorrow morning. Dave and I have a Kids Day game minus the kids. It's 11:30, and so I'm a night guy. I told Starman, I said, I'm going to have to go to bed early on Monday. So I've got that one tomorrow. And then Dave and I have both games, including the Huskies against Western, I'm just looking at the schedule, and then Omaha and Colorado College on Wednesday.
So be sure to catch Ben Holden and Dave Starman on NCHC.TV and, of course, Midcoast Sports Network. Ben, thank you so much for taking some time today and answering some questions here for us.
Anytime, Sam. It's a pleasure. Anytime you need to fill a hole, man, I'm happy to help. So it's appreciate you guys having me on, and say hi to Brian Stanley and all the crew in there. You guys do an awesome job, and it's great to see you guys as college students doing what you're doing. And I wish I would have had that opportunity. I would have done it in high school, and it's really cool. You guys do an incredible job, and so props to you guys, man.
Well, I'll pass that along, and thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us here on Husky Game Prep. We'll be back again next week.